Right, go for it.
Great. So right now we're looking at creating a data model to allow our data scientists to come up with a friend recommendation engine. Okay, so a couple questions here. When we're looking at this, can we like base some assumptions off a friend recommendation system? So what are our users looking like in this? So what would the users kind of be interacting with? Like how kind of what are some attributes that you're thinking of would be in this, like their back or like their downstream model that would have some that would be leading to these recommendations? Because this could be like a tennis app where people in the same area would be playing with each other and they want to get recommended with players at their skill level or not. Or it could be something where they share interests on a very large social media interactive app, kind of that. So I guess using the users would give me a really good understanding of how we can connect these users together.
So this is for Instagram.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. So right now we're looking at friend recommendations. So right now I'm looking at the fact that we have our main thing right now is revolving around users. So some things that I would think, I'm gonna just kind of go over. Actually, I don't need to write this on. So we have users right here.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. What's the first thing you do in a SQL question when you do a SQL mock interview?
Ask the clarifying questions and then lay out the your steps to solving this issue.
It's the same thing, because that's a pretty big question, right?
Okay. So what would I feel like maybe I'm struggling with the vagueness of this. So how would you pin this down? Because I felt like asking the users question was my kind of trying to clarify the problem. And then this is kind of me initially just laying out users as one thing. And then ideally I would have been, okay, what is the model or dang. So we're looking at features in the model. Then we have, so ideally I'm going to use user activity as my star table. That's what I'm thinking right now, creating user activity and then building off of that through a couple different dimensions where the post was maybe the activity of the post, where each post would be one specific line. Then you have so my first table would essentially be user activity. And then you have under user activity, you have, let's say, or creation date, because that's super important for a user. How long, lifespan of user.
So user activity is a dim table, right?
User activity would be, actually, so if this was we'll just say, because creation would technically be more of a dim feature, I think that we could easily make this right here, user dim, and then focus strictly on what our users are right now.
Would you call it user dim? What would you call it the table?
Probably we could call it dim user.
Yeah, there we go.
Really matter?
It's good practice, right? It'll show good practice. And so I'll start kind of creating the tips here. You have dim user.
Yep. So we have creation lifespan, which is great. We have last activity. We could have, or it could be even activity last 7 days. Could even be activity last 30 days.
Activity what?
Region. So this could be activity could be. So that's actually, this could be a listed values in terms of what they've been doing over the last 30 days, whether it's like, that's actually a great question. So ideally what I was thinking of when I was thinking of this specific feature right here, as I was thinking of, okay, when was like the how many times would it have they like, how many times have they logged in the last day? That's kind of what I was thinking of in terms of activity last 30 days. And now that I'm thinking about that, because I feel like that's super valuable to our end user to kind of recommend other users that are active instead of recommending users that are inactive. I think that's kind of important when we're trying to look at our client who is using these.
Why
the looking at our client using how much they're using the platform?
Right. Why is that important for a friend recommendation engine?
Yeah, it's extremely important because I think you not only do you want the friend recommendation system to work in theory, but you also want it to work in practicality where users are actually connecting with other users that are active instead of someone that posted in 2021 that had very similar interests based off the features they built this model with, which could be
what
like
if it's a new user?
Following. Pardon?
What if it's a new user?
Then this could be left blank. And I think that we would focus on some other tables to get information to feed the model to help target those specific new user cases.
What if it's two users that are very active? One is in China, one is in the US. Would you recommend that as your friend?
That would actually be up to the data scientist to kind of figure out if, based off other features, kind of what their metric is that they're making these decisions on, and then also the program manager after. So right now I'm just focused on giving them all the information they need to feed into this thing, and then they can figure out if region or country would be important for them to like make these recommendations as well. So that's not something I'm too focused on right now. I do want to get into more of those kind of like other dimension tables where we're looking at country and we're looking at all these things, so I can try to provide our data scientists with enough information so that they can make these decisions where it is benefiting our user as well. Not just, this model isn't just working in theory, it's also working in practicality, and our users are seeing we'll just say this.
What about two people that aren't that active? Would you not give them friend recommendations?
So I think that's where this activity in the last 30 to 7 days would actually be a really good indicator, because if they aren't active recently, then why would you recommend them as a friend? Because right now they're not technically being a very active user. So I think this is kind of like a proxy for active users right now, which I think is like really, really important when you're looking at something like an Instagram, where you want people, like, your platform is only as good as the people on it and how often they're using it. Which is like basically how the feeds are running. If other people aren't posting and things of that nature, or they're just sitting idle, or they're not interacting, commenting, liking, all these things, that's where I'm kind of getting.
What if 80% of people in the world are not active by your definition?
80% of the people are
those 80% of people?
No, I don't think you ignore those 80% of people, but like if they're not active and you give them a friend request recommendation, would they act it? Like, would they, like, and that could be something as we get.
Wouldn't them getting another friend make them more active?
Getting them a new friend recommendation make them more active, but aren't they also already getting friend recommendations? I feel like if they are already getting friend recommendations, are they not active?
Are they already getting friend recommendations?
The Instagram I have gives friend recommendations at the moment, based off who I'm following.
Isn't that the point of this? Isn't this question assuming that this is the start of Instagram where there is no friend recommendation engine?
Okay. So I assumed
you haven't asked enough clarifying questions. You jumped in hot.
Okay.
You jumped in really hot.
Okay, too hot. Damn. Okay.
You jumped in really hot. This is. Do you know what the goal? Have you ever heard the big Facebook metric?
Is it like ARPU? It's like average revenue per user.
When Facebook came out, they wanted a goal to get 10 friends in the first 7 days. Because what they found out is that if they get somebody 10 friends in the 7 days, they retain them forever.
Okay.
In the first 7 days. That means they're targeting you hard as a new user. So all of this is irrelevant to a new user. Their goal is to actually, because the thing is, when someone joins Facebook, everybody's inactive because they don't know anyone. Think about it. You create a new profile, you don't have any friends. So the point is to come up with a friend recommendation engine so that you can get as many friends as quickly as possible so that you stay on the platform.
Okay. So that now would be our new, so we're targeting, so this model, this recommendation model is targeting essentially new users. And then the goal would be, from what I'm hearing, would be to retain them for as long as possible.
This is all stuff you need to discover, right? The same
Okay.
way in the SQL mock interview, you would ask a bunch of clarifying questions and slow down in the first 5 minutes. You'd have to do the same here because all of these questions are vague. They're vague on purpose.
Okay, so basically it would be like, what metrics are you looking at to feed? So I can ask, like, what features are you looking at to kind of feed this thing? Or because I felt like
what data do you? Because you're coming from a data science brain, so you get it. The problem is from a data engineer brain, you have to figure out what data scientist wants.
Oh, okay.
Right? They're not working as closely on the data model, on the machine learning model as a data scientist. The 3 words I want you to remember, and you know this really well as a data scientist, is to define the metric.
Okay.
Right? Because think about it.
Oh,
what is a friend? How do you measure the success of a friend recommendation engine? That's why I asked, like, if you give me 10 friend recommendations from people that are really active in China, is that a successful, recommendation engine if I don't know any of them?
Yeah, probably not.
But if you give me recommendations of the people that are in my school, now all of a sudden the chances go up.
Oh, okay. So we're looking at, so like if I were to, so like let's say this question happened and I'd sit there, I'd be like, so the first question I'm always looking at is, okay, this is an awesome question. Like what metrics are you defining this this model on? That would help me build some things where I can hopefully I would just say optimize their mental performance.
And that's where you kind of go into the business brain, right? Here, like you don't have to ask what the metric is, but you can ask a bunch of questions like, what's the goal? What's the problem Facebook is facing? It's a new engine, right?
Dude, this is crazy.
What brought around this project? Apparently any data, right? And now you start asking questions and start becoming very, very product focused because that's what this round is going to be. Yes, you create dim tables, fact tables, but you're not coding in this round, right? You're like really like going into the product question because that's what, like, the scientists are going to come up with the ML models, but you're coming up with the data that feeds their ML models that solve a business problem.
Yeah. Okay. So the business problem isn't what they're giving me. That's definitely like me misinterpreting kind of what's happening here. They're giving me
this, like what you wrote here with the last 7 days, 30 days, that could have solved a business problem, right? If they had a business problem that, hey, we need to increase engagement. Great. Look at the activity in the last 30 days, get the most active people to keep being active, blah, blah, whatever, right? But a lot of times they put a vague question and they already have something in mind. So they're kind of looking for you to see if you can maneuver your way into their train of thought, right?
Okay, so you're trying. So you have to probe hard, like essentially.
It's the same thing as a SQL question, right? Like there's a correct answer at the end. Now this one's a little more subjective, right? But there's a correct answer at the end. Can you ask the right questions to get you there?
Okay, cool. So as I guess now it's like, what is the problem that we're facing and like how can we overcome it to reach the goal that we're looking for? I think finding like a combination of those two things can really help me figure out what information I can give our data scientists to get the best recommendation model they're looking for.
Right.
So that's kind of like the question I'm looking at. Okay, fantastic.
Well, now knowing this, right, knowing that this is the goal, how would you go about building a few dim and fact tables?
Okay, so now our goal is to get 10 friends in the first 7 days to retain something. So I think that I'd like to start with definitely an act. I would say like a post table, or we could do you start with a dim or a fact table when you're doing these things first?
Yeah, I'll add that here. Like
Okay,
always
so
label them.
you're building the fact table off your entities that you've stated in the dim table, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you should always name your tables one of those two, and I would probably build a few dim tables and then go about building the fact tables.
Okay, and then you're kind of incorporating I wouldn't like the primary keys from the dim tables in your fact table so you can have
Right.
everything in there.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I think I want to start with a dim new user table. And this is going to be so this is going to populate within, actually we can just make it a user table because we're going to track if they're new or not, or when they're new. So it's like, then we have unique ID. So this is a user ID that we can easily parse our users by. And this can be a bar chart. So this is going to be like an alphanumerical unique ID that we can basically identify our users by. So then we can have their first name, last name, or we could even concat those together if we really need. And then we want origin of account. So origin date, creation date's probably a better and easier way for people to understand what's going on. So then we have creation date, and this is going to be a date time data type. We could have, so dim users. Right now I'm actually debating before I do that, let's do region, or let's do country first. So let's do country, and then we'll do city, because I don't want to include state because we have a bunch of international users. So I feel like city could be a better proxy for kind of isolating where people are from, especially with the help of country. We can kind of look at them more like that instead of just like what's in the state. We have, so like unique user ID, creation date, country, city, and then we can do followers, and then following.
Like the
Post.
number?
Yes. Post count. I mean, I assume that these would be either like, even if they are real time or batch, it wouldn't really matter because our data would be updated every single day if we're doing it something like that. So I feel like we could update our followers and following and post count as so that we're getting essentially in that day or in that week or something when we're running this project or this model, we can look at.
How does that answer the question? How does that help with the question? Knowing that you have 20 followers, I have 10 followers, how does that help in recommending someone?
I don't think it might not. I mean, now that you're saying that,
so
it probably would.
And this brings me to my fourth tip. Stay focused on the question at hand. So here's the thing, and this is one of the dangers about this round. As you already saw, it's very subjective, and the number of columns and things you can put are unlimited, right? There's a billion rows you can put, a billion different columns, a billion different tables you can create. So be very, very careful about just going on like crazy because remember, like those 3 columns that you just put there, they can potentially cost the company money, right? Because it's space and it's not actually answering the question at hand.
Okay.
So stay excruciatingly focused on the question there. Listen, I do have to run.
Cool.
But
this is great.
Do this. Book another one for next week. Don't touch this. I want to continue where we're at.
Okay, sounds great. I'll book another for next week.
These tips here can help you. And watch some of the mock interview videos in the portal. Have you done those yet?
Yeah, I watched the mock interview questions, and it's always kind of funny because you always look at the mock interviews like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'd do that. I would do that too. And then you sit here in the interview and you're like, fuck, bro, what am I doing next? Like,
the thing is, it's a different muscle, right? People are very used to like the leak code style of like, let me just go in and like code really quickly. But it's like in the interviews, remember you're talking to somebody, which is why these sessions help so much. This is probably the most important thing right here. If you do these first two things, it's going to save you so much headache for the rest of the hour, right? It's very similar to the SQL portion.
Okay, that's fantastic. Could I do like could I send some practice problems in the Slack?
Yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead
cool.
and
I
do it
definitely need
here
to
and
do
drop
that.
it in here. Yeah. Also, if you want to do any recordings, record yourself doing it and then send it.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. I'll do that in the evenings.
Or post it in here too, so we can be organized. But yeah, go for it. I do have to hop off, but you have a meeting today with Nana, right?
Yes, I do. I mean at 11 with him to talk about some other stuff. I'll probably bring some stuff like this up as well.
Cool. Book another one with me for next week. We'll continue this one.
All right, sounds great. I really appreciate the help today.
Awesome. Later, buddy. Bye.